Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to explore some fascinating research about how watching anime can actually help kids become more creative. I am Ishik Dutta, and this presentation is based on a real scientific study that was just completed on November 20, 2025. The study looked at 872 elementary school students right here in China, and what they found might surprise you. So let us dive into the colorful world of anime and discover how those fun cartoons you love could be training your brain to think in amazing new ways. Before we begin, let me give you a roadmap of where we are heading today. We will start by answering two basic questions: what exactly is anime, and what do scientists mean when they talk about creativity? Then, we will look at three specific ways anime connects to creativity. First, how anime helps build creative traits in your personality. Second, how it inspires you to actually do creative things. And third, how it trains your brain to think more creatively. Finally, we will talk about something called creative self-efficacy, which is basically a big phrase for believing in your own creative powers. After we understand the science, we will get to the really exciting part, the actual results from the study. You will see real numbers showing how students who watch anime scored higher on creativity tests. We will also compare Chinese anime and Japanese anime to see how they affect creativity differently. And finally, I will give you practical tips, things you can do right now to use anime to boost your own creativity, and ways teachers can bring anime into the classroom to make learning more fun and creative for everyone. Let us start with the basics. What is anime? Anime is a special word for animated shows and comics that originally come from Japan and China. But it is not just any cartoons, these are colorful, artistic stories that have their own unique style. You can recognize anime by the way characters often have big, expressive eyes and cool, detailed designs. The study we are looking at focused specifically on Chinese and Japanese anime because those are the most popular among students here. In fact, the researchers found that about 72% of elementary school students watch and enjoy anime regularly. That is nearly 3 out of every 4 kids. And here is something interesting: the Chinese anime industry has grown so much in the past 10 years, from 2013 to 2023, that it is now worth over 252 billion yuan, making China one of the 3 biggest anime markets in the world, right alongside Japan and America. So why do kids love anime so much? The answer is actually pretty simple. First, anime tells incredibly fun and exciting stories. The heroes go on amazing adventures, face huge challenges, and solve problems in ways that keep you glued to the screen. You are not just watching, you are emotionally invested. Second, the art itself is super imaginative and colorful. The worlds are fantastical, the characters are memorable, and everything is designed to spark your sense of wonder. But here is what the research shows: when you watch these stories, something deeper is happening. Your brain is constantly processing new ideas, different perspectives, and creative solutions. The study found that this is not just entertainment, it is actually exercising your creative muscles. Now, let us talk about creativity. Scientists define creativity as the ability to produce ideas or things that are both new and useful. It could be a story nobody has ever told before, a drawing that shows something in a fresh way, or even a new rule for a game you are playing with friends. Creativity helps you solve problems in clever ways and see possibilities where other people see dead ends. The important thing to remember is that creativity is not just one thing, it is not just being good at art or having a wild imagination. It is actually 3 different parts working together, and the researchers measured all 3 parts in their study with 772 students from 3rd to 6th grade. Let us break down those 3 parts. The first part is creative traits. These are the qualities inside your personality, things like curiosity, imagination, and being willing to take on challenges. Researchers used something called the Williams Creativity Scale, which has 50 different questions that measure 4 main traits: adventurousness, curiosity, challengingness, and imagination. The second part is creative behaviors. These are the actual things you do, like drawing a picture, writing a story, building something with cardboard, or even planting a tree. Scientists measured this using the Biographical Inventory of Creative Behaviors, which lists 34 different creative activities and checks off which ones you have done. The third part is creative thinking. This is your brain's ability to generate lots of different ideas for one simple object. To test this, researchers used the alternate uses task, where they give you everyday items like a newspaper, a pencil, or a brick, and ask you to list as many unusual uses as you can think of in 3 minutes. All three parts work together to make you a creative person. So how does anime help build these creative traits? The study found that kids who watch anime regularly score significantly higher on all 4 personality traits, especially curiosity and imagination. When you watch an anime hero ask questions and explore new worlds, you start wanting to explore and ask questions too. You imagine yourself right there in the story, fighting alongside the heroes or solving mysteries with them. This constant mental practice of putting yourself in new situations and seeing the world from different perspectives actually strengthens your natural curiosity. The research shows that this effect is particularly strong with Japanese anime, which scored higher on creative traits than Chinese anime, 116.66 points compared to 113.24 points. That might not seem like a huge difference, but in scientific terms, it is significant enough to show that Japanese anime's deep storytelling and complex characters really do stretch your imagination further. Let us zoom in on curiosity. In almost every anime, the main characters are constantly asking questions: why is this happening? What is beyond that mountain? How can we defeat this enemy? When you watch them, you cannot help but start asking your own questions. This is called observational learning. You are learning by watching others be curious. The study found that this effect is so powerful that students who watched anime scored much higher on the curiosity section of the creativity test. They were more likely to say they enjoy exploring new ideas, asking what-if questions, and learning about things they do not understand. The more you watch anime, the more your brain gets used to being in a curious, questioning state. It is like your curiosity is a muscle, and anime gives it a great workout every time you watch. Now let us talk about imagination, probably the most obvious connection to anime. Anime is filled with things that do not exist in the real world: flying dragons, giant robots, magical schools, people with superpowers. When you watch these shows, your brain has to work hard to imagine how these impossible things could work. The researchers found that this is like exercise for your imagination. The more you watch, the stronger your ability to visualize new ideas becomes. They used a special scale that measured imagination by asking students if they enjoy daydreaming, making up stories, and picturing things in their mind. Students who watched anime scored much higher on these questions. The study even suggests that this imaginative strength carries over into real life. You become better at picturing solutions to problems, visualizing how a project might turn out, and thinking of creative alternatives to everyday challenges. Moving on to creative behaviors, this is where the rubber meets the road. It is one thing to have creative traits, but do you actually do creative things? The researchers measured this by asking students about 34 different creative activities, everything from drawing and writing stories to building things, acting, dancing, and even helping with community projects. What they found was amazing. Students who watched anime reported doing significantly more of these creative activities than students who did not watch anime. The average score for anime fans on creative behaviors was around 20 points, while non-fans scored only about 12 points. That is a huge difference. It shows that anime does not just make you think creatively, it actually motivates you to get off the couch and create something yourself. Here is a concrete example of what this looks like. After watching an episode of their favorite anime, many kids immediately grab a pencil and start drawing the characters they just saw. They might write their own stories featuring those characters, or even build cardboard models of the robots and castles from the show. The study calls this behavioral imitation and extension. You see something cool, and you want to try making it yourself. This is a key creative behavior because you are not just copying, you are adding your own ideas, changing the story, or designing a new character. The researchers found that this effect was strongest among kids who watched Chinese anime, which makes sense because Chinese anime often shows characters doing practical, hands-on activities that kids can easily imitate in real life. This brings us to a really interesting finding about Chinese anime specifically. The study discovered that Chinese anime is particularly good at encouraging what scientists call processual creative behaviors. This means creative actions that also help others or benefit the community. For example, Chinese anime often includes themes about teamwork, protecting nature, and helping your friends. Shows like Boonie Bears have strong environmental messages. The researchers found that kids who watched Chinese anime were more likely to do things like plant trees, start recycling projects, or help organize community activities. On the creative behavior score, Chinese anime fans scored 20.16 points, which was actually higher than Japanese anime fans who scored 17.56 points. This shows that Chinese anime's focus on practical action and social values translates into real-world creative behaviors more directly. Now for the third part, creative thinking. This is your brain's ability to generate lots of different ideas and see multiple solutions to a problem. The researchers tested this using the alternate uses task, which I mentioned earlier. They gave students 3 minutes to come up with as many unusual uses as possible for a newspaper, a pencil, and a brick. Then, 5 trained psychology graduate students rated each answer for originality and creativity. What they found was that students who watched anime consistently produced more creative answers. The average creative thinking score for anime fans was around 4.5 to 4.8 points, while non-fans scored only 3.0 points. That is a difference of more than 50%. This shows that anime trains your brain to think flexibly and see possibilities everywhere. Let me give you a specific example from the study. When asked to think of uses for a simple brick, students who did not watch anime mostly gave obvious answers: build a wall, make a path. But anime fans came up with dozens of creative ideas: use it as a bookend, grind it into powder for art, paint it and use it as a doorstop, use it as a weight for exercise, balance it to practice focus, and even pretend it is a magic artifact from an anime. The researchers found that anime fans could list significantly more uses for each object. This is because anime constantly shows characters using everyday items in surprising ways. A ninja might use a scarf as a weapon, or a scientist might turn a spoon into a robot part. Your brain gets trained to think, what else could this be? This skill is incredibly valuable in school and life because it helps you find creative solutions to tough problems. The study also found that Japanese anime is particularly good at boosting creative thinking because it often features complex mystery plots and puzzle solving. Many Japanese anime are built around riddles, escape rooms, strategic battles, and mind games. When you watch the hero solve a complicated puzzle, your brain is working right alongside them, trying to figure out the answer before it is revealed. This is like a mental workout for your problem-solving muscles. The researchers noted that while both Chinese and Japanese anime improved creative thinking scores, with Japanese anime scoring slightly higher at 4.78 vs 4.52, the way they did it was different. Japanese anime's deep, layered storytelling challenges your brain to hold multiple ideas at once and think several steps ahead, which directly strengthens your creative thinking abilities. Now we come to the most important discovery of the whole study: something called creative self-efficacy. This is a fancy psychology term for a very simple idea: it is your belief that you can actually be creative. Do you believe you can write a story? Draw a picture? Solve a puzzle? If you believe you can, you are much more likely to try, and the more you try, the better you get. The researchers used a special 17-item scale that asked students how much they believed in their own creative abilities, even when facing negative feedback or tough challenges. The results were crystal clear: creative self-efficacy was the key bridge between watching anime and actually being creative. Let me explain how this works. The study measured creative self-efficacy by asking students questions like, how confident are you that you can come up with new ideas? Do you believe you can make something original? And can you keep being creative even if someone criticizes your work? Students who watched anime scored much higher on these questions. Why? Because anime heroes are perfect role models for self-efficacy. Think about it, your favorite anime character never gives up, no matter how hard the challenge. They believe in themselves, and they always find a way to win. When you watch them, you start to internalize that attitude. You think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. This belief is so powerful that it actually changes your behavior. You are more willing to try new things, take creative risks, and keep going when things get tough. Here is where the study gets really detailed. The researchers found that creative self-efficacy acts like a bridge or a delivery truck that carries the positive effects of anime watching into actual creative ability. For Japanese anime, this bridge carries all the power. In other words, Japanese anime improves your creativity entirely because it makes you believe in yourself more. For Chinese anime, the bridge carries most of the power, but some of Chinese anime's benefits also come directly from its practical, action-oriented content. The study even calculated exact percentages. For Chinese anime, self-efficacy accounts for 76.75% of its effect on creative traits, 34.71% on creative thinking, and 10.99% on creative behaviors. For Japanese anime, those numbers are 44.41%, 33.75%, and 18.71% respectively. What this means in simple terms is that confidence is the secret ingredient. Anime makes you feel more creative, and that feeling makes you actually become more creative. Alright, let us dive into the actual numbers from this study because they are really impressive. The research team surveyed 772 elementary school students from grades 3 through 6, that is ages 8 to 12, in a school in Sichuan province. They used 4 different scientific tests to measure creativity and anime preferences. The results were so clear that there is no doubt about the connection. In every single area they measured creative traits, creative behaviors, and creative thinking. Students who liked anime scored significantly higher than students who did not. The differences were not small either, they were big enough that scientists call them highly significant, which means the results are very reliable and not due to chance. Let me give you the exact numbers because they are amazing. On creative traits, which was measured by the 50-item Williams Creativity Scale, students who did not like anime scored an average of 109.1 points. But students who liked Chinese anime scored 113.3 points, and Japanese anime fans scored even higher at 116.7 points. On creative behaviors, which counted how many of 34 creative activities students had done, non-anime fans scored only 12.45 points, while Chinese anime fans scored 20.2 points and Japanese anime fans scored 17.6 points. On creative thinking, measured by the alternate uses task, non-fans scored 3.0 points, while Chinese anime fans scored 4.5 and Japanese anime fans scored 4.8. The statistical analysis showed these differences were huge, with F-values of 12.01 for traits, 45.90 for behaviors, and 65.30 for thinking. In science, any F-value above about 3 is considered significant, so these results are off the charts. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. The study found that Chinese anime and Japanese anime boost creativity in slightly different ways. Chinese anime scored significantly higher on creative behaviors, 20.16 points versus 17.56 for Japanese anime. This is probably because Chinese anime emphasizes practical action, teamwork, and doing good deeds, which kids can easily imitate. Japanese anime, on the other hand, scored significantly higher on creative traits, 116.66 points versus 113.24 for Chinese anime. This is likely because Japanese anime often has deeper, more complex stories with morally ambiguous characters that make you think more deeply about human nature and possibilities. For creative thinking, the scores were very similar: 4.78 for Japanese anime and 4.52 for Chinese anime, showing that both types are equally good at training your brain to be flexible and generate ideas. The bottom line? Both types of anime help creativity, but they do it through different strengths. The most important finding of the entire study is that creative self-efficacy is the key bridge connecting anime watching to creativity. The researchers used a sophisticated statistical method called the process macro program to test this, and the results were conclusive. For Japanese anime, self-efficacy is a complete mediator, meaning all of anime's positive effects flow through the channel of increased confidence. For Chinese anime, self-efficacy is a partial mediator for creative traits but a complete mediator for behaviors and thinking. What does this mean for you? It means that the most important thing you can do is believe in your creative abilities. The study shows that anime builds this belief, which then unlocks your creative potential. The researchers even calculated the exact path coefficients. Japanese anime increases self-efficacy by 10.68 points, which then increases creative traits by 0.31 points per unit of confidence. Chinese anime increases self-efficacy by 9.33 points. These numbers prove that confidence is the magic key. Now that we understand the science, let us talk about how to use this information in real life. Whether you are a student who loves anime or a teacher who wants to help students be more creative, there are some simple, proven strategies you can use right away. The study's findings give us clear guidance on how to maximize the creative benefits of anime while avoiding the pitfalls. It is not just about watching more anime, it is about watching the right kinds of anime and then actively applying what you learn. So here are some practical tips based on the solid scientific evidence we have just reviewed. First, be selective about what you watch. The study shows that anime with heroes who solve problems through intelligence, teamwork, and perseverance are the most beneficial. Look for characters who face tough challenges but never give up. These heroes model the self-efficacy that is so crucial for creativity. The researchers specifically noted that Japanese anime's complex characters and deep narratives are particularly good at building creative traits, while Chinese anime's moral, action-oriented heroes are great for inspiring creative behaviors. Avoid shows that are just mindless fighting or have negative messages. Instead, pick anime where the characters use their brains, help others, and grow as people. This will help you internalize those same positive traits. Second, do not just watch. After you finish an episode, try a creative activity right away. The study measured 34 different creative behaviors, so there are tons of options. Draw a new robot based on one you saw in the show. Write a short manga story about what happens after the episode ends. Build a cardboard castle and design defenses for it. Create a new character and imagine what their special powers would be. The key is to act on the inspiration while it is fresh. Share what you make with friends and get their feedback. The research shows that students who engaged in these creative activities had much higher creativity scores. Remember, creative self-efficacy grows when you actually try and succeed at creative tasks. Finally, for teachers, the study suggests that anime can be a powerful hidden curriculum for creativity. You do not need to show full episodes, just use short clips to spark imagination. Start a science lesson with a 2-minute clip from an anime that shows a crazy invention, then ask students to design their own invention. In language arts, show a scene with a moral dilemma and have students write an alternative ending. In art class, use anime's unique visual style to teach about color, perspective, and character design. The researchers found that when teachers incorporated anime into lessons, students became more engaged and produced more creative work. Just make sure to choose clips that model positive problem solving and then give students hands-on activities to apply what they have seen. And that is the amazing science behind how anime helps kids be more creative. We have looked at real data from 772 students, examined 3 different types of creativity, and discovered that confidence is the secret bridge connecting what you watch to what you can create. So the next time someone tells you you are wasting time watching anime, you can tell them you are actually exercising your creative brain, building your imagination muscles, and strengthening your belief in your own creative powers. Just remember to choose inspiring heroes, take action on your ideas, and share your creativity with the world. This presentation was prepared by Ishik Dutta on November 20, 2025, based on the groundbreaking research by Chunwei Wu, Ting Tao, and Rui Zhang titled The Impact of Anime Preferences on Creativity of Primary School Students, Mediating Role of Creative Self-Efficacy. The study was published in the Proceedings of the 2025 Fourth International Conference on Educational Innovation and Multimedia Technology. All the statistics, test results, and findings shared today come directly from that peer-reviewed scientific research. Thank you for your attention, and remember your creativity is a superpower waiting to be unlocked. Keep watching, keep creating, and never stop believing in your ability to imagine amazing things.